Father David Jones is a Welsh hermit priest who moved to Duleek in County Meath in search of the solitary life. And yet, as Jerry May discovered, there's something about his way of life that just keeps drawing the crowds.
Duleek, County Meath is home to a Welsh priest, Father David Jones. But Father David is no ordinary priest. He is a hermit who is officially defined in canon law as someone who is required to live a solitary life, almost totally separated from the world. He prays and listens. He's a healer of souls.
Into the Holy Spirit. There is, and it's recognised as such, a crisis in the life of the church now, everywhere right now, because there is quite often a lack of spiritual direction. Because parish priests in practice are in a hurry. They've got huge enterprises to administer. Whereas a hermit is just occupied with souls. So just being there and giving that element of spiritual direction means that people have access to the invisible element, not the administrative element in the Catholic Church. That matters. People sometimes just need to open themselves up, and it means a lot, it heals a lot, if they know that somebody cares for their soul, somebody with time. Knowing that one matters enough to be listened to is today something which perhaps would safeguard a lot of people from getting into a state of depression and even suicide.
During his life, Father David has served in a number of monasteries around Europe. At one stage, he observed a 10-year vow of silence. Just over 2 years ago, he took up residence in Duleek. However, he still follows the monastic regime. Prayer begins at 3 a.m. every morning and continues right through until bedtime at 7.
The life of a hermit consists essentially of prayer, that of the Church, the divine office, and the way in which he does that would echo the way in which he's been formed. So my own would be very much a monastic one. So my life is based to a large extent on the oratory, on prayer. As it was in the beginning, is now and ever shall be. In the contemplative life, especially the eremitic life, one hears time passing. If you get up at 3:15 night after night, there's a whole element of hearing life passing, of thinking about things, of feeling God. To justify the existence of a hermit, one needs to have recourse to the notion of God as creator, who has the right to create in the invisible world angels, but in the visible world monks who do what angels do in heaven on earth. And therefore one is purely, if you like, an act of praise all the time, worshipping the Creator on behalf of creation.
Even though Father David leads a solitary life as a hermit, it's not a solitary existence. As a priest, Father David is duty-bound to interact with the community. On the first Friday of every month, he holds a special liturgy, a full Latin Mass.
Intro ibo ad altare Dei. Judicame Deus discerne causa meam de gente non sancta. People appreciate that who want a deeper, quieter celebration where one isn't obliged to talk to other people or to be in a hurry. And those who specifically choose and ask for the Latin one, which occasionally happens, also like it because they feel this is a mystical experience. This is a different language. This is wholly different from daily life. And they like just to be lost in quiet prayer.
He does remind you very strongly of the spiritual aspect of life, which is not just something out there, it's really the central thing in your life when you get down to it, you know.
You always feel happy around him, and he's very understanding when you have any type of problem, and he's always there, like, to help out in any way he can.
I would have associated a hermit living out in the middle of a mountain in a little shack. But it's lovely to have him here, and we're delighted to have him. I hope he doesn't leave us anyhow, because he's become one of our family nearly.
Whilst the vast majority of Father David's time is spent in the hermitage, he sometimes has to leave his solitary life of prayer.
20 Vodafone and a book of both stands, the continental ones and the Irish ones as well. I suppose 2 or 3 times a week I have to go out to the local shop to get a few essentials like milk and to post the odd letter. You're quicker than I am. With regard to living, my own philosophy is this: if I'm a good hermit and priest, things will just arrive. People are amazingly kind in Ireland. We were just coming back now just a few minutes ago, and there was a bag of something there waiting at the door. Providence, somebody had left something. That's beautiful, but that's Irish. So maybe it's not just an accident the Lord led me back to Ireland where there is that goodness around, but that's the Lord's goodness coming through human channels. But the thing is, if one is free without any needs, then it's easy to satisfy those needs, because people suffer because they create needs which aren't necessary. And to satisfy those needs, they're sacrificing a lot of peace.
Life as a hermit is, by its very nature, a life less ordinary. Hidden from society, many of the rigours of normal living are left behind.
One is deliberately escaping a certain type of existence, yes. One is escaping from noise, escaping from, if you like, lightness of existence. There's a certain seriousness there. And one can call that escapism if one wants to, but on the other hand, if one looks carefully at people around, there's a lot of escapism going on. You look at a young person today, very few young people can sit quietly with their own thoughts. That's escaping from themselves. To live without a television, without a radio, without internet is, for some, strange. And yet the emptiness and peace that comes from all that extra, not cluttering one's mind and one's life, is hugely liberating. And one then hears another voice and is also aware that if one is giving oneself to the invisible, then the invisible and the one that inhabits it is far more powerful than any human security. And so there is, if you like, a genuine gamble with God, that if I will give everything to Him, He will give everything back in a different form. Good message I would like to leave would be simply this: slow down. Life is sometimes richer through being poorer in the number of things that we undertake. And if there are too many words, one doesn't hear. Because people now are rushing outside themselves, outside life, and they don't really taste life. They're not in contact quite often even with themselves. And that's serious. Life is more pure, more profound if there are fewer things happening.
Father David Jones there, and something tells me he might find a few more carrier bags of food on his doorstep after that film.